And our Guardian Angel Award, Vilma Stayana, we spoke about last week. Vilma, if you weren't here last week, Vilma and I started the same night with Geshe Michael in someone's apartment studying Dharma. She's now in 3-year retreat at Diamond Mountain. And trying to actualize these things that we're talking about. And they have asked that the 3 jewels act as sort of guardian angel for Vilma. They've asked sort of people or groups of people to have each retreatant as to be the guardian angel for each retreatant. So the 3 jewels is Vilma's guardian angel. So the main thing that she needs is moolah, about $350 a month. They have a $1 a day program where you go on the website and you pledge, 10 cents a day, 50 cents a day, $1 a day, whatever, on your credit card, auto billing. And in that way, Vilma receives her propane heat for the winter and food and drink and whatnot in the desert. So, there are 30 people in class. Cup of coffee costs, I don't drink coffee, I don't know, $1 or $2. So I would like to ask everyone to pledge, the cost of a cup of coffee or less. Or if you think somebody next to you is going to be a blow-off and not pledge anything, you can pledge 2 cups of coffee so that we can support Vilma and look after Vilma. There's a particular, you have to go on the website and put in her retreat cabin number and yada, yada, yada. I don't know how to do it. So I would like to ask everybody to sign up to pledge to be a guardian angel for Vilma, be a Bodhisattva. And I will ask, if you could just put your name, you can even just put your first name if you want, and your email and your phone number, and I will ask my wife, give her something to do, ask my wife to be in touch with you to figure out how to get it logged onto the website in the correct way. Yeah.
I spoke to Nancy about this in retreat, and I offered to do an email blast to my company and some of the companies in the city.
Great.
But I need somebody to help me make it a computer, do the computer part of that. I wrote something and everything, and they make up nice little pretty, whatever you call it.
Graphic-y things.
Yeah. Email, Then I could, because one of the things I feel like is we keep coming at the 3 jewels and the people here for money, for things, and there's this whole rich city out there that I'd like to go after.
Is there anyone who would like to help? Oh, look at that. 2 people.
Okay.
Bingo. Okay. So, but otherwise, I'd like to ask everyone for less than $1 a day to help Vilma stay in 3-year retreat. So if you're willing, please, I'll pass it around. Please just note it down, and I'll pick it up at the end of class, and my wife will be in touch to figure out the technological complexities of how to actually make it work. All right? I think that's all the announcements. And we did your announcement already, Mike. Anything else you'd like to add?
I would add, he's the chanting master of ceremony, so his voice is in Gonze. He's got a wonderful voice. So he'll probably do some chanting, teach some.
Okay, so going for refuge. So there are how many things we've got to do? Lost track. No, 3, right? So this is number 2. Going for refuge is the second thing we've got to do. What was the first one?
Frustrations.
Yeah, prostrations. Finished talking about prostrations. Second thing we've got to talk about is taking refuge, right? Everybody talks about, you got to take refuge. Go get refuge. You get a Tibetan name, right? It's like the selling point, right? You get some Buddhist Tibetan name, like I'm Sangye, whatever. I don't know. Right? But it's really not the point, right? Taking refuge is what differentiates a Buddhist from a non-Buddhist, right? And what does it mean to take refuge? What does that look like? There's a joke in that there's the abbot of a very large monastery. He was sitting on the throne in front of thousands of monks, and some of the monks could read minds, and they said, he's not even a Buddhist. He's the abbot up here in front of everybody, and he's not even a Buddhist because he doesn't have a refuge. He doesn't have refuge in his mind. He can't be a Buddhist. Having refuge is the thing that makes you a Buddhist. If you have it, you're Buddhist. If you don't have it, you're not Buddhist. Right? So we have to know what refuge is, right? And it's one of the 3 preliminaries we have to do before we can engage in this purification practice to get bodhicitta. Before we can clean our heart, via purification, we have to go for refuge. So we got to understand what that is and what it really is, right? I suppose the worst thing that would happen is if you don't know what it is, you don't get it, right? You don't actually get any refuge, and you're not really a Buddhist. But the idea here is that refuge is protection. But in what way? Like, what do we take refuge in, and how does it protect us, right? How does Buddhism protect you, or how does the Buddha protect you, or how does, saying Sangye Chodam, Sangye Kyonam, how does that protect you? Just like reciting this little Tibetan thing that we don't understand 3 times before class, does it offer some kind of magic protection? Not much, right? So what are we doing, right? Well, hopefully thinking a little bit, right? There's Shakyamuni Buddha. He was the head of this whole Shakya tribe, and there was a point where his village was attacked by another tribe, and his clan, his village townspeople, they ran into his house for protection. They grabbed him and begged him for protection, and they begged him to protect them from the soldiers who were attacking them. And they were cut down and murdered, standing there with them. So, if you could be standing next to an enlightened being and be slaughtered, then how is an enlightened being going to protect you? What good is it to say, I go for refuge to the Buddha, right? When you could be in his house and still get chopped up, right? What's the protection? Is it this Judeo-Christian thing that we grow up with, which is like there's some guy on a throne and he's got a lot of power, and if we somehow are in his good graces, that we'll be okay and he'll take care of us? I think we have that unconscious thing in the back of our mind a little bit, just because if we grew up in that tradition anyway. But some kind of feeling like if you want it badly enough, somehow you'll be protected, somehow someone will take care of you. It's human nature. I want somebody to take care of me. I just want an absolution, please. Can you just take care of me, please? I don't have to be responsible for myself. Can you please take care of me? Somebody, somewhere, anybody? Right? Take the Buddha if it's not going to be God, Maybe Krishna, if Buddha won't do it, I don't know. Anyway, so, what, if a Buddha can't protect you from being murdered, what's the point of going to refuge, going for refuge, and what is it, and what's it look like, right? So, the Dharmakaya isn't a being, right? The Dharmakaya is the emptiness of the other parts of an enlightened being. So, right? So, is the absence of a self-existent thing somehow going to protect us from being murdered? Not really. Not in any direct physical way, right? So, and the Dharma jewel, right? It's just some thought in some guy's mind. It's like some guy over here. Is Geshe Michael having awareness of emptiness in his mind going to protect us from getting cancer? No, not really, right? So, so what's the point, right? It's supposed to be this. It is the most central, basic, important concept in Buddhism. So how is it that it works, and how is it that it offers protection, right? In the monastery, they study it for 12 years. They have a 12-year program to understand refuge and understand how it protects you and what real protection is. But basically, it's that you can't get protection until you understand emptiness or ultimate reality. That is the protection. Period. And Buddhism won't help you much, and can't help you much, and won't protect you much until you understand emptiness. And you will not have assured protection until you understand emptiness fairly well. That is the protection. If you see emptiness directly, then you're good. You're on your way out, right? You have a finite number of lives. You won't suffer, right? You're going to be enlightened. You see it all directly. Never going to have any major problems in your life again, period. So that's protection. Knowing it, knowing these things, knowing that you'll never have heavy suffering, knowing that you're going to be enlightened in a finite, short period of time, right? Knowing that you're always going to have good rebirths, knowing that you'll never suffer, right? Knowing that you'll be this being of great love and compassion towards everyone, that's all protection, right? That's a pretty good life. You can feel pretty good about all that, right? After that. So, so that's real protection. That's the protection we're trying to get, is this assured knowledge that there is a definite near endpoint to our suffering. This clear, direct seeing and realization that we will be a holy, beautiful, loving, compassionate being, perfect being in a certain amount of time, right? That's real protection. So what's the common theme throughout all three of the jewels that keeps coming up over and over again? Emptiness, right? Emptiness, right? So in the Dharmakaya, it's the emptiness of the Buddha, right? The Dharma jewel, seeing emptiness directly, and what happens to you after that. And the Sangha jewel is being a person who has seen emptiness. Right? So that's the real protection. Emptiness is the real protection. If you're talking about going from refuge to the three jewels, you're talking about going to emptiness, in different ways, right? Different aspects of relying upon emptiness, different aspects of understanding ultimate reality and relying upon ultimate reality, right? So, the picture is not going to help you. Talking to a picture is not going to help you, right? Having a conversation with the statue is not going to help you. Right? So, offering cookies to a piece of metal is not going to help you, right? So it can't protect you, right? The Buddha himself can't protect people. Right? So the only protection is understanding Dharma and understanding emptiness in karma. That is the only protection. So that's what taking refuge is. People have been slaughtered next to pictures. People have been murdered on altars. You have to understand Dharma. There's no protection in physical objects. It's your understanding that's the protection. Understanding karma and emptiness. So you have to learn about refuge. And mainly, when we bow down, we have to be thinking about emptiness. Mainly, when we go for refuge, you have to be thinking about emptiness and ultimate reality. To any of the three jewels, yeah.
But to the extent that we understand the emptiness of the objects, the act of making a stupa, we understand the emptiness of the act. It's still a purification. I mean, it's still, I'm not saying the object in and of itself as self-existently has power, but does the act of relating to it, taking blessing from it, giving blessing to it, those things help us, is what I'm saying.
Maybe.
Are they the ultimate help? No, but aren't they part of the...
I would say this. Anything that we undertake, right? How many karmas are we collecting in an instant? Right?
6.
So, in the time that it takes to go to stupa, call it a month, say, call it a week. How many times did we think about these things? How many times in the process of painting or pouring concrete or whatever it is one happens to be doing for the stupa, digging in the dirt, how many times in that process did one think about the nature of ultimate reality? I was doing my vow book, and one of my vows today was to breaking the vow by not thinking about emptiness. Right? So just building a stupa is moving around dirt and rocks. The dirt and rocks have no meaning from their own side, nor does anything. So and that's the point. The point is, to the extent that we're thinking about these things, then we are engaging in virtue, and perhaps a very powerful virtue. To the extent we're not thinking about these things, we're not. Just like when we were speaking about prostrations before the break, the Giku says, don't waste the time. So who cares if you're prostrating? If you're thinking about movies, so what? It's wasted time, wasted effort. So the point here is that there is no self-existent, holy thing. There is no piece of metal. There is no particular shape of face. There is no particular cool, mudra on the statue's hand that somehow, if you get that right, and you bow down to it, something magical happens. And I think very typically in the West, when we think about Dharma practice and we think about altars and the Buddha jewel, and most people don't know that there's a difference between the Buddha and the Buddha jewel, or the Dharma and the Dharma jewel, or the Sangha and the Sangha jewel. And that's the point. When people go for refuge, they're bowing down to a monk or a nun because they're a monk or a nun, or a lama because they're the high lama, right? Somehow they have some magic and special status from their own side. Is the person who's bowing down to the teacher thinking about them, as the representative of the Dharmakaya, for example? Or are they thinking about them as someone who has perhaps perceived emptiness? Or are they thinking about them as the conduit for teachings on emptiness? If they are, then they're going for refuge to the three jewels properly. If they're not, it's like, not Buddhism. Right. So that's really why we're talking about this, and I'm glad you bring it up, because it isn't about what you do and what it looks like, and that there's something holy from its own side, just because somebody said it's a holy activity. That's exactly our point tonight. Our point tonight is the only thing that makes it holy, and the only thing that makes it special, is thinking about it properly and relating to it properly. And if you're not thinking about it properly, and you're not relating to it properly, it's not holy. It's not special. It's not Dharma. It's not Buddhism. Otherwise, you just need to make the right statue and give it to everybody, and we'll all be good. Everybody build the right stupa, and the world will be fine. So it's like that. So, and that's the point tonight. Trying to remember where we were. What was the last thing we talked about?
Refuge.
Refuge. We're talking about going for refuge, taking refuge. Okay. So when you bow down, we're thinking, if there's anyone in the world who's seen emptiness right now, I'm bowing down to that person. If you're bowing down, to Sanghajo, for example, I'm not bowing down to the guy because he's an old Tibetan and he's, has special robes that no one else has. I'm bowing down to him as the representative of someone who has seen emptiness directly. I'm bowing down to, him as the representative of the Buddha. I'm bowing down to him as the, teacher of emptiness. So that's the point. Someone who's reached enlightenment, someone who's seen emptiness directly, someone who's teaching emptiness. So we have to think about that, and so that's really the meaning of the three jewels. Whether it's offerings or prostration or anything else, that's what we have to be thinking about. So we have to take refuge in the sense of acknowledging and respecting the physical objects. It's not like we're going to just throw the statue in the trash heap, right? Or take down the tankas. That's not the point. It's respecting them as the representation or representative of these higher things. And don't get confused about it, and don't get mixed up about it, and don't get it backwards. Don't somehow think, oh, this tanka, because it's very old and looks really cool, is the special thing. It's just a representation. And if we're not thinking about the meaning behind it, then we're missing the practice. We're missing the point of the practice. So, the Sangha, the Sangha, heck, I remember when I used to be at a Dharma center, there was an older monk there. He took a hot cup of coffee and he just threw it as hard as he could across the room at somebody else. Full cup of coffee, hot cup of coffee, The Sangha are people, they fight, they have problems. The point is not to find fault with them in some way and disrespect them. The point is to understand that they are representatives of the true Sanghajo, And that the Buddha said, they are my representative in the world. And you have to respect the robe, and it doesn't matter who's wearing the robe. The point is not to find fault with the people wearing the robe. The point is to understand what the robe represents and to respect what the robe represents. And so we have to do that, Not find personal failings in the monks or nuns. Not to take refuge in the nominal Sangha, right? That's not the point either. Right? So, and the same with the books. We have to respect the books and we have to care for the books. But that's a reflection of the understanding that they're teaching about emptiness, and that's the real point, and that we are going for refuge to teachings on emptiness, and the books are facilitating that, right? So they're symbolic, and these are symbolic actions to show that we understand what's going on, and that we respect what's going on, and we're relating properly to what's going on. So like that with going for refuge. So then chupa, please say chupa.
Chupa.
Making offerings all the time. And so it's a statement. A lot of Buddhists think like, oh, I'll buy a cake or I'll buy some cookies and I'll put them on the altar and that'll be my offering, right? Never appealed to me much. I didn't like the idea of just setting stuff out to sit there and get nasty. But it's not really the point, right? you have to understand offerings and what offerings are about. And the Master Shantideva says very clearly, it's not possible to reach the state that we're talking about. It's not possible to attain bodhicitta, and it's not possible to see emptiness unless we make offerings. And we have to make offerings, and we have to learn the art of making offerings and what it means and how it works and what it's about. So, if we see it as some kind of obligation, if we see prostrations and offerings as some kind of obligatory thing, then we're missing the point and we're not collecting the virtue that we've got to collect. So, the debate master says, it's a stupid activity or a stupid end. It's not an obligation. It's something we do to collect virtue. It's something actually that spiritual geniuses do. You have to understand what's going on when you make an offering. First of all, you got to understand it's basically a pointless activity in the normal world. In the normal world, it's a waste of money. You're taking your hard-earned money and you're buying things that nobody's going to use, and then you're putting them out, letting them get nasty, and then throwing them away, right? And it serves no productive purpose, right? And nobody says, "Oh, wow, those are beautiful offerings you put out. You were so great. You're such a great practitioner." There's nothing in it. There's no worldly gain in it at all, and that's part of the point. It's an action which is totally useless in a worldly way, right? Nobody cares if you make offerings, and you don't benefit. It's a selfless act, and it should be a totally selfless act, and a pure selfless act of offering, right? You shouldn't buy things for the altar that you want for yourself. The idea is, this is my favorite chocolate. I'll put it there, make an offering, and then I'll eat it tomorrow. That's not a selfless act. That's not a selfless act, right? And so that, if you want to ruin your offerings and if you want to ruin your collection of virtues, then do it that way, right? You destroy the power of the offering that way. So if you want to make sure you waste your offering, turn it into something worldly and mundane for yourself, okay? So it shouldn't be something you want to eat or something you want to drink. To be a pure act of offering, it should be something that's going to be destroyed, something that you're not going to get any benefit from personally. Something no one even knows about, perhaps. I've had people say to me, "Yeah, I had this favorite piece of jewelry, and we were having a puja and there was a fire, and after everybody left, I took my favorite piece of jewelry and I put it in the fire, and nobody knew about it. It was an offering, an act of truth and an offering." Based upon understanding, based upon thinking and understanding in a particular way, right? Is it some virtuous thing to throw your favorite piece of jewelry in the fire? No. Not unless you're thinking a certain way, right? Depends on what you're thinking, depends on what your intention and motivation is, right? So if you're doing it in an appropriate way, that's a real offering. So, you give the things which mean something to you, which are of some significance to you. And it's a statement, right? It's a statement that I believe these beings exist. Saying, I believe these holy beings exist, and I'm going out of my way to make this statement and to make this effort to declare that I believe these holy beings exist. And I'm making an offering to these holy beings that maybe other people don't believe in, and that, and it's an affirmation of my beliefs and my practice and where I stand, So everything else we do in the world, we get up, we put on our clothes, we brush our teeth, we eat breakfast, we go to work, we have lunch, we come home, we watch TV, we chill out, we have some fun. Every single thing we do all day long is for us. It's just self-interested, There's almost nothing we do which is not just a pure spiritual act, a pure spiritual act of devotion or dedication. And so offerings are that. It's one of the few things we can do in the course of the day, in the course of our life, which is not just a plain, ordinary, mundane activity tied up with our worldly life, right? So, all those things, all the things we ordinarily do, they're mundane, wasted acts. They lead to nothing but suffering and death. Their natural outcome is suffering and death. So all the ordinary mundane activities we engage in, there's only one outcome, which is death. An act of offering is an act of spiritual genius and truth, and that it collects virtue and it collects causes for happiness, and it serves no other purpose other than that. Okay? No one's going to eat the cake. It's just going to get nasty. No one's going to see it, right? So.
How long should you leave it there?
How nasty do you want it? That doesn't matter. It really doesn't. The point is the thought process, right? So, ideally, if one's keeping a nice altar, one would refresh one's offerings daily. Put a new fresh offerings daily. Because the idea is every time you're doing it, you are planting seeds in your mind and you're affecting your mind. and you're collecting virtue every time you're doing it. So, it's not like the guy who saw emptiness is going to come and eat the cookies, and it's not like the absence of a self-existent Buddha is going to come and eat the cookies, It's not for the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Aryas that we're making the offerings, it's for us, right? So, something does happen when we make the offerings, and the offerings do make contact with those beings, right? And when you put flowers on the altar, they do experience it in a way. Now, is it that they come into the room and they smell the flowers? How is it that they experience it, right? They experience it the exact same way as a holy being experiences anything. A holy being experiences their shoes as pure bliss. A holy being experiences the sound of a door closing as pure bliss. A holy being experiences the sight of a flower as pure bliss, the cookie as pure bliss. It makes absolutely no difference to them whether there's a cookie on the altar or not. They're experiencing everything as pure bliss all the time, irrespective of what you do, right? So they're having the experience of pure bliss with or without your offering. They don't need anything from you or I. It's of no consequence to them whether we offer or not. They're not getting some additional benefit from our offering, right? So you can't offer them anything that they don't experience as total bliss, right? It's impossible. So if you didn't offer anything at all, they'd still experience that as total bliss. That's just the nature of their reality, right? That's all they know. That's all they're capable of experiencing. So what's the point of offering something to someone who's not even a person and who can't offer it as anything except bliss anyway, whether you offer it or not? They don't need the cake, right? So we're trying to set up our own purification. We're trying to collect the positive energy and the virtue for our own purification so we can get real compassion. So it's really all for us, These actions and these undertakings are for us. If you read Master Shantadeva's verses in the reading, he's begging the three jewels to accept his offering. He's saying, please, I'm offering you, please, please, please accept the offering. For my benefit, please accept the offering, right? It's not that they need it, right? So the main thing that happens is something changes inside of you, right? Making offerings changes something inside of us. And that's why we do it. So, if we want to be spiritually retarded, then don't make offerings, and don't do prostrations, and don't go for refuge, and we'll just stay as we are, and nothing much will happen, right? So it's not that it's just this devotional thing that comes from Asia, which has no point and which is of no consequence. So making offerings is really a sign of spiritual genius. You have to have a very high spiritual IQ to make offerings. So, we go out, we spend good money, we put something on the altar, and nothing obvious happens, And so it's this statement of what we believe in, and we have to do those things for the purification to work. And if you don't do them, you won't get results, and you become one of these Dharma students who's bored and where nothing's happened, and you quit because you're not getting any results. So, if we start to make offerings, then things will change inside of us. And so, what do you offer? There's a listing in the text, and it says there are various things which are listed in the text, and I'm not going to go through them. But there are three broad categories of things we offer. Please say Dakpu, Masum, Weze. And these are things which no one owns. You can offer things which no one owns. There's a whole category or class of things which no one owns. Like sunset stars, rainbows, right? So, it says things which have no owners, things which nobody claims and you can offer. And so, why make this offering, right? One reason is you don't have a lot of money. It's a cheap offering. It doesn't cost you anything, right? You can do it anytime. You could be walking down the street and just see a beautiful cloud, with a beautiful tinge of pink, and say, I offer that to my holy teacher, right? So this kind of offering is very beautiful in that you can do it constantly. There's no excuse. Can't claim you're too busy. Can't claim you didn't have time. Can't claim you didn't have money or resources or store didn't have quite the right cookie. So, it's very, very sweet. Anytime you see any beautiful thing, you see a beautiful person on the street, I offer that to my teacher. Yeah. Hear beautiful music, I offer that to my teacher, or whomever. So it's a very, very sweet practice. You just close your eyes and offer it to them. So, and then things will start to change. Things inside you will start to change. And it helps you to get ready for bodhicitta, and if you don't do it, that won't happen. So Very important to do. Master Shantideva says, there is something I own, even if I'm broke, which is my body. And so you can offer your own body. Please say Rangi.
Rangi.
Lua.
Lua.
This is offering your own body. So there's a story. I don't know. There's a story of a bodhisattva called crying all the time. He heard a voice that said, "Go east, just go." And so he just dropped what he was doing and he just went east. And he kept hearing this voice that said, "Keep going, keep going, keep going." And he went and he did it in ancient India. And so he's walking and he starts to have a vision of a Lama. And the voice says, "Keep walking." And he sees this vision of the Lama and the Lama's teaching. And he's walking day after day and getting closer and closer, and he sees the vision of the Lama teaching disciples, and he's getting closer, he starts to hear the Lama. And after some time of walking, he finally gets to the village and identifies the house, and he says, "Well, I can't go without offerings." And he realizes he's totally broke. He doesn't make money to make offerings, so he's looking around for something he could sell to make offerings. He doesn't even have anything he can sell to make offerings. So he just decides, all right, I'll just sell a chunk of fat off my leg or something in the market to make offerings. And so he has a demon, which is an obstacle, which no one can hear when he's speaking. So he's trying to sell, he's like, meat, anyone, meat for sale, and no one can hear him. And so there's a lady on a rooftop who sees him from an affluent, a wealthy lady, and he's crying because no one can hear him, and he can't come up with any money to make offerings, and he can't go to Lama empty-handed, and he's come all this way to see. So it's a very famous example of a bodhisattva. He's called Ever Weeping. And she goes down and talks to him and says, "What's going on? What's the problem?" And he tells her, and she goes and talks to her dad, and she gets the money. And so it's a story has a happy ending. He gets the offerings. He goes into the teacher and studies with the teacher, and he sees emptiness, and everything ends happily ever after. This is not that kind of offering. This is not what they're talking about. They're not talking about sell a chunk of your leg, to offer your body. This is simply offering yourself in service. Offering your time, offering your effort, offering your energy, right? Putting your life in service of the three jewels. That's the offering of yourself and your body. And I put myself at your service. Just take me, use me, use me for virtue, use me to, to help beings with bodhicitta, right? So, and then the third offering, please say Lutrue, Chupa. And these are offerings you emanate with your mind. And then you just send it out with your thoughts. You fantasize, basically. Close your eyes and you just think about them. There are 12 different kinds which are listed in the reading. You can imagine Tara, some beautiful bodhisattva. There are different descriptions of how to do it. You're bathing them. You bathe them in a certain way. You give them beautiful clothes, you dry them in the right way, you prostrate to them in the right way. And so it's very sweet. You just have this gorgeous, beautiful fantasy of doing all these offerings. And you do it all in your mind. You can visualize beautiful places to live, palaces and gorgeous mandalas, flowers of every kind. And so doing these sorts of things has a profound effect upon one's mind and the imprints in one's mind. It starts to affect one's mind. It seems like just sort of some made-up, nonsensical thing, but it actually has an effect on the mind. And you can see it when you have these other fantasies at work about, like, this person did this, and you start to think about these things and obsess about these things. This person did this to me, and I'm going to do that to them, and I'm going to get them. It has an effect on your mind. It definitely changes the nature of your mind, right? So it's a very cool thing. So you go through it and you have a good time with it, not as an obligation, but as a joyous thing. It's one of the 6 perfections, right? Is enjoying doing good. And so that's the idea here, is you just enjoy, you have a good time, doing this. Have a good time making offerings in your mind, imagining all the beautiful things that you can offer to holy beings or anyone else you meet. So, and just make it a joyous thing. So you'll see in the reading one thing to mention, names like Avalokita, Shavara, Manjushri, Vajrapani, Samantabhadra. In the text, they are bodhisattvas in the higher teachings of Buddhists, so don't get confused about that. They're talked about here as bodhisattvas, and they're known for their ability to make these offerings. They specialized in making offerings, which is one of the important ways that they became enlightened, especially Master Samantabhadra. There's a special form of offering called unsurpassed offering that he teaches. So you have these things. If you do these things, they prepare your mind to achieve compassion. And if we don't do them, we'll never get it. We won't achieve bodhicitta. So we'll become one of these sad, frustrated people who aren't making any progress in their Dharma class. And we say, I don't know what went wrong. I don't know why it didn't happen. I don't know why I'm not making any progress, you know, and the reason nothing happened is because, well, I did offerings for a couple of weeks or a month or two, and then I stopped, you know. And, you know, I made offerings for a little while, and then I lost interest, and I was on to the next thing. Right? And that's why it doesn't work, you know, because we don't sustain the practice, and we don't engage in the practice in a consistent way long term. And, you know, you can do it anywhere. You can do it on the subway, you can do it walking down the street, and the only reason not to do it is just not being committed, being lazy, not believing in it, whatever. And the only outcome of that is, you know, more of the same suffering life that we've already had. So I can attest, bless you, I can attest from personal experience, if you don't do it, you don't get results. And, you know, I can also attest that the times in my life when I've had a good practice of it was very sweet and very beautiful. And I'm guilty of having times in my life where I was just like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore, I'll move on to something else. And you forget about it and you don't do it, and it's like, something's not right, something's not working. Right? So we all have to be very careful about this, myself included, to be sure that we are honoring and engaging in these foundation practices. Because if we're not, then we don't get results. You know, so I would say we all need to, especially myself, make sure we engage in, you know, these preliminary practices of prostrations and offerings and going for refuge with the correct understanding and motivation, but mainly have to do it at all. You know, I mean, the first step is doing it at all in any way, shape, or form. And then, of course, implicit in that is important to do it with the right thought process, right? So, that said, sorry we went over.
Sashi
See the holy being at your crown become smaller and brighter, glowing light, entering into your heart, blessing your mind stream, abiding there. By the power of the goodness of what we've done here, may we quickly purify every negativity, collect every virtue, effortlessly engage in all the preliminary practices, thereby quickly come to the end of the path and the end of every suffering. Thank you. My pleasure. Oh, next week, I don't think I'm going to be able to have class next week. I have an appointment which I think is going to prevent me from getting here. So, Geshe Michael is teaching the week after that on Nirvana. So it's going to be 3 weeks until our next class. So if you know anyone who's not here, please let them know.
That's 13th.
Yeah. So I apologize. It was the only time I could get the appointment. So it's Oh, the gold sheet of paper for the guardian
Right here.
angels. If there's anybody who has not signed that would like to sign, please do. You don't have to put the amount either. My wife will call you and deal with it.